name is Jean May Clarke. I was born in 1941 in a little village called Addlestone, Surrey in England.
Would you like to share any stories about how or why you or your parents first came to Tairua?
Yes, my parents don't figure in it until a bit later on. I went through a divorce and I had met Steve, who lived in Tairua, and in 1981 I came with my son Chris and my daughter Tracy to set up home with him up on Paku. Now he worked for the garage, the BP garage in town, as in the tire bay. He was the Firestone man. And the following year we all settled in, and the following year I got a job as a pump attendant, pumping gas, much to my family's horror, surprise. Oh, Mum, you know. And time went by, and it was a good life. It was busy, really busy at Christmas time when the hordes of people came here. And I worked on the pump. We didn't have automation then. It was just pump people on the tarmac, so to speak, with pockets full of change, and we would pay people their change at the pump and then go in to put the money in the till when our pockets wouldn't hold anything else. They were good times though. And time went on and Max wanted to retire, and he sold to somebody called Bill McAuliffe, who was a much younger man and knew brooms sweeping clean. And once the settling down period for him came, he put in all automated pumps. We had an automated till, and the days of money in the pockets was over. And having the first FPOS machine in town too, so. And a rather amusing story, at Christmas time you would see the young Pauanui surfers having wrapped their FPOS cards and wallets in polythene. They would paddle over the ditch here from Pauanui to Tairua, come and get their cash, wrap it all up again and paddle back to Pauanui. It was quite fun. And quite a few years went by, and then Bill eventually wanted to sell. And Patty Homan was our office lady. Now the Homan name is quite an old name from Tairua. And Steve and I and Patty and her husband Rex, we mortgaged everything we owned and we bought the buildings, the business building and land from Bill. And we ran it for another 6 years. So in 1991 we bought it. We sold it in 1998 when we retired. So that's the kind of end of my garage days. I wasn't sorry that it came to an end, but it was fun while it lasted. It was a good few years of hard work. And then while we were at the garage in 1983, Steve and I got married, and both my parents were there. And then 5 weeks to the day after that Saturday, my father passed away. So that was rather.
What was Tairua like when you first came here?
Tairua was a lot less populated in those days, a lot smaller. What I recall most is the shops that are there now across the road from the garage, the Out of the Blue and the lotto shop and the restaurants and Get It On, none of those, the rock shop, nothing was there at all. The only buildings between us and the Peppy Bridge was Roger Turner's house and Roger and Pat's motel next door. The whole of that area was one big grass paddock. And I recall my son had a few clapped out cars when he was here. And one night the fire brigade decided they would get Chris's old clapped out Mini and park it in the middle of that reserve, and then for an exercise they set it alight and then proceeded to put it out, much to everyone's amusement. Yeah. On the other side, there weren't many shops at all on the other side. The supermarket, of course, was there, but a lot smaller with the attached takeaway. And there was a little haberdashery shop with net curtains at the window. It was all very twee. And then there's always been a butcher's there. And then there was a little restaurant called the Hungry Friends. And then a hardware shop, which ultimately became the liquor store that it is today. On the other side from those shops there was a big mini putt, which was a great asset in the summer holidays when everyone was here. And then further down the road there was May Finlay. This is towards the bridge. May Finlay ran the post office. And she was a great character. Everybody that was anybody knew May Finlay. And when she retired, one family member of Rex and Betty George bought it, and it became the Peppy, the little restaurant, and that's subsequently grown from then till now. We didn't have the little mall that's there now, that wasn't there at all. But on the corner where Mania was, there was a rather nice building called the Bubbling Brook, which was a wine store. And then, of course, there was the cinema, which is exactly the same building as the building that's occupied by the hardware now. And one amusing we would go there in the winter time, rugged up with blankets, hot water bottles, and I always managed to get sat behind somebody, no names mentioned, but somebody that had a great mop of hair that you couldn't see over, under or round. But one really amusing event that sticks in my mind is in 1983 they were playing the movie Gundy, and it was one of these movies that you see a bit of the end before the movie starts, which was just as well, because about 2/3 of the way through I needed a comfort stop, and not wanting to use the questionable facilities inside, I opened the front door and went out to go down the road. But somebody shut the door after me and I couldn't get back in. So the last 20 minutes or so of the movie, I was sitting on the park bench outside in the freezing cold, waiting for everybody to come out. I've never ever forgotten that.
What's your best memory of Tairua as it was earlier?
It was always fun to be in Tairua. There are always things going on. Always boating and collecting pippies from out here. Barbecues, and everyone was really nice. And I got, working in the garage, I got to know couples that lived here. I always got to know the men before I got to know the ladies, and it wasn't until I left the garage and met things with ladies and clubs and things that I could connect who was with who. It was quite funny. Oh, you belong there. Right, now I've got you.
Have you been involved in local community clubs and services?
Yes, I have been involved in quite a few. When I left the garage, I'd always wanted to go line dancing, or to become a line dancer, but never had the opportunity because of work always got in the way. But in 1998, when the new year began and the clubs were up and running, I did join line dancing and absolutely loved it, and went on to become one of the 4 teachers. And then many years ago, when the Friendship Club started, an idea from Doreen Corey Wright and can't remember the other lady's name. Anyway, a few of us, me included, we used to go around to people's houses if they needed a lift and bring them, I think it was to the football club originally, and give them a nice home-cooked meal and entertain them and then take them home again. And it grew and grew and grew into the little empire that it is today, and it's a good feeling to have been involved in something like that when it was first a seed of an idea.
And you were in what was the originally before the Troubadours, you were in the shows, weren't you?
I was in the original Troubadours, yes, when Sin Ernest was here. Yeah. I got roped in for because we used to serve a meal to people before the show, and I got roped into one year of being a waitress. I had to go home, find a white sheet, make myself a toga, and present myself at 6 o'clock to serve the meals. The next year I found myself front of house person, and then the year after that, which was the millennium, they did a show which was the Millennium Show, and I then got talked into being on the stage playing, of all things, Cherry Blair, whose husband was Tony Blair, was then the Prime Minister. Yeah. But other clubs I've been involved in have usually involved exercise of some sort. Over the years it's been...
Apart from Heritage, where you're
apart from Heritage, now I sit. Yeah, and still on the stage, yes, yeah. I recall some of the services that were here then. A really lovely policeman, sole policeman. His name, he was built like a New Zealand All Black, Maori All Black. His name was Nick Paki Paki. And I recall one day seeing him. He'd got 2 prisoners, couldn't handle both of them, so one he tied with the handcuffs to an adjacent lamppost while he dealt with the other one, and vice versa. He could handle anything. And as I say, my references to the fire brigade before, they were always such helpful men. If your back was to the wall with anything, you could always rely on the fire brigade to bail you out.
Has there always been a strong fire brigade here?
Always, yes. It was always so funny when the fire siren went when we worked at the garage. Everybody disappeared and left the girls to man the service station while they went to put out wherever the fire was. It was quite hilarious. Somebody would come out of all sorts of shops and rush across the road, and yeah. But no, it was always very efficient, very efficient.
Have medical services changed since you've been
there was no doctor here in those early years. And I recall a very nice doctor, whose name I can't remember. He would come around from Pauanui twice a week, and he had a couple of little rooms that were adjacent to the car park that's in the front of the now rugby football club rooms. But he was a real darling, yeah. But I can't recall when the other doctors arrived, but he was the mainstay in those early years. Yeah.
And any other characters that you can remember you'd like to talk about?
Oh, all sorts of characters that used to give me cheek on the forecourt, yes. Derek Boyd, I remember Derek Boyd being one of them. He was an absolute character. But no, they were good years, and I really wouldn't want to live anywhere else. When Steve and I went our separate ways a few years ago, my friends thought I might leave town and go and live where my family are. But I could not imagine myself anywhere but Tairua. So I'm still here.
Were road closures an issue in those days?
Sometimes, yes. The Kopa Hikawai in particular was... Just before I moved here in 1981, the road was closed for 5 weeks because there was... it's on the other side where the river roars through, and some of the roads slipped into the river as a washout. but it was only 5 weeks. So, but I wasn't doing that journey then. So, but I think people have gotten used to it, but we're not used to how it is at the moment. Let's face it.
Any important people in the town when you first came?
Well, Max Sweet, he was always the one that was trying to get a business association going in those early years, but it was always falling by the wayside, always falling by the wayside. And over the years, that falling by the wayside has happened a lot of times. So Roger Turner figured quite large. And then we had another millionaire in town. His surname was Flowers. I can't remember his Christian name, but he was the man that started off the New Year's Eve fireworks. He had a big place up on Pumpkin Hill Road. Yeah, and he was very friendly with Roger Turner. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but then he left town. But it continued. It's always continued. New Year's Eve fireworks has always been a thing. A long time ago. But Roger Flowers was the first man to get that, whether it was his original idea, but he was the first man that, I believe, put the money up to do the first years.
Did you have community services, reps in those days?
No, not that I can recall. No, not that I can recall. And as the shops grew, there was no coffee shop or tea house or anything here when I first came. And I recall occasionally, if we weren't busy, this lovely little old couple would arrive on the forecourt to get petrol and be creaking, trying to get out of their cars. Where can we get a cup of tea? And I'd say, you just sit tight, I'll make you one. And I'd go out the back and bring them out 2 mugs of tea while the petrol was being filled up. Yeah.
Was there a library in those days?
There was a library, yes. The little library was a little building that is now the annex to the hall, or a smaller version of, yes. It was a good library, I enjoyed that.
Did you have to pay, or was it?
I don't remember now. I think you paid to join. I don't think it was attached to the TCDC in those years.
And did they have lots of social occasions in the hall? Like
yes,
dancing?
Many associations in the hall. Yes. I remember a favourite time of mine that involves the little Tairua church, which it was a lot smaller then than it is now. And it was just surrounded by grass. And my son, Chris, he'd courted the eldest daughter of the mill owners, the tanners, and it was their wedding day, and the church was all bedecked, and the tanners' trucks, the big Mack trucks, all painted green and gleaming, all be ribboned, and they would come up there. I think there were 2 or maybe 3 of tanners' trucks, holding the bride and the bride's father and the bridesmaids and Uncle Tom Cobley and all, and people lining the street, waving and throwing things, yeah. And in the hall, once a year, the tanners always had a dance for their employees, and Steve and I were always asked to do the bar, which was an education in itself, because the drinks really flowed. Yeah. And in the hall all those years ago, there was a big upright bar, and we'd have to take our shoes off because we were awash with beer around the back.
Oh goodness me. And did you use the hotel and the beer garden? Did you go there?
No. We used to go for dinner down into the Cowrie bar there. We used to.
Oh, with the cowshed was?
There was the Cowrie. There was the bar where the real drinkers go, and then there was a saloon, a bar where you could go and have a dinner.
Oh.
And it was all lined with Cowrie.
Where was that?
Where the pub used to be.
Oh, okay.
The Sir George Grey, that was a sad day when that went. Yes, sad day. But there used to be a big hoolie there at New Year, and the ferry would come across at the appointed time, and people would stagger out, and on the ferry stagger out the other side. Tairua was a really fun place, and people used to make their own entertainment. Yeah, there used to be people that had little bands that they would turn up at dances, and lots of activity in the hall then. Yeah, I think it's probably was busier then for fun and entertainment than it is now. It's used for all sorts of other exercises and meetings, and but not necessarily fun things like
not
there used to
social
be.
occasions.
No. And I remember some really good parties at the fire station too. Yeah, it was good.
And what were the roads like?
The roads weren't bad. We didn't have that median strip up the middle in those days. It was just one, and lots of people walked as well. Yeah, it was a quiet, small town.
What would the population have been around about when you just came here? Is it smaller than what it is now?
I think so. Yes, yes. Apart from in the Christmas holidays, when I was first at the garage, before it was automated, I recall seeing the queue coming from Thames that way. The queue to get in onto the forecourt was along the road, over the bridge, and then some. People were waiting to come in and get petrol.
And no drink driving
no.
testing in those days?
No, I don't think so. No, not that I ever saw. No. But it's always been a fun place to be, always. And I wouldn't wish to be anywhere else. Yeah.
Oh well, thank you very much, Peter.